Welcome to another episode of the Basketball England podcast, this time with your host Jake Wright. We're talking officiating with three former BBL players turned NBL officials, Ingus Bankevic, Matthew Lloyd and Neil McKelvey. We talk on how they got into refereeing, their own relationships with officials when they were players, the impact refs like BBL legend Roger Harrison has on their own approaches to refereeing, and what it was like to grow up together at a recent NBL game. If we could go around the room, so to speak, and just introduce yourselves, and for those who don't know, the uninitiated, a little bit about your kind of playing careers.
I'll go first, then, since I'm the youngest. But I was involved with the original, what are now the Phoenix, the Cheshire Jets, back in the late 90s. Now, to say I was a player officially, but I'd never played the minutes like Ingus did. So I was involved with the team just before Matt was, and we did, we won everything in that team. We were the Chester Jets. Then they became the Cheshire Jets, and then they became the Cheshire Phoenix. But back in the late 90s, early 2000s, early 90s, mid 90s, they were the Whipping Boys. And then as the years progressed, they became a lot more competitive, and then they actually did what they call was the Jet Wash and won everything: the cup, the trophy, the league, and the playoffs. So I was involved probably 95 onwards, up until early 2000s. But I never played the minutes Ingus did. But I was involved. I got the odd bit of court time now and then. But yeah, it was a real enjoyable time, and learned lots from lots of really good people around then, who I still have contact with now.
So you built the team up for then Matt to take over. Is that right, Neil?
Yeah, he came in and took over. Young, fresh legs.
And Matt, what about your time with the Knicks?
Yeah, so I was the first head coach as when they branded into Cheshire Phoenix. I was kind of the person that was at the helm of the team at that point. Kind of chucked in at the deep end a little bit, but I'd had a fair bit of experience from coaching and playing from when I was at junior level. So I was one of the few player coaches at under 18 level. It was something that I took on quite early on, of getting involved with coaching side of basketball. And then, as I say, I was coach of Cheshire Phoenix for a season there before it was then passed on to John Lavery after that, and kind of pursued more of the refereeing side of things. But similar to Neil, when I was playing, not really playing within the BBL, it was kind of just, if needed, in our short rotation that we ever had. In the first year of Cheshire Phoenix, we only had 6 or 7 players, and there were times where we had injuries, so that's when my court time appeared. But prior to that, I was always like in the background. I was a training squad member for the Chester Jets under Paul Smith as coach, John Lavery as coach. So I was always in and around the club there, before obviously coaching for that season.
And Ingus, Neil and Matt have just been very generous with their words, but obviously, you're a staple at the Manchester Giants for 5 seasons. Is that right?
I think 5. Yeah, I can't even 5 or 6, but I was injured for 1 season, so that didn't really count. But I think 5 seasons. I think I played for Giants. But like I said, I played professional like 15, 16 years in Latvia. Lithuania, France, I get a little bit around, but yeah, last 5, 6 years I play in Giants.
And gentlemen, just from those points, why did you decide to kind of get into officiating? Why did you take that course or that particular journey in basketball after, say, coaching or playing?
For me, I was injured, and I landed funny trying to remember it, and I hurt my back, so I couldn't really play. And there was good junior teams around, and back in the early days, well, there probably still is now, there was always a shortage of referees. So just by chance, could you referee this game? Stood in and quite enjoyed it and had a good knowledge of the game. And just from there, maybe if there wasn't a demand to referee back then, maybe there wasn't. I may not have continued with the refereeing. But because there was such a demand, I kept going. I actually used to referee Matt's junior team with 16s and 18s. That was a little bit further on, but I used to referee juniors and like a Saturday morning get together, and it just progressed from there to a point where it had a very successful junior program, Ellesmere Port Panthers, where Joe Leedham played. And a lot of the head coach of Cheshire Phoenix now, Ben Thomas, he played, and a lot of people came through that. So it was a really good standard to referee. And Jimmy McGinn was the head coach at the time. So I sort of started very slowly, just by chance, through having an injury, and then just got the bug for it, and then just drifted away from playing, and then stuck with the officiating side of things.
Matt, do you have a similar kind of road into officiating?
Yeah, well, similar road in that it's the same sort of people. So obviously Jimmy McGinn was the head coach of the Panthers, who I used to play for, and we used to have like a primary school league. So it was kind of getting us under 16s players, 18s players to officiate those junior games or those primary school tournaments that he used to arrange. So that's kind of how it started. So I did my level 2 course when I was 13, and then straight away I went into local league basketball. And I've always been the person that people have asked of, so Matt, what are you going to do? Are you going to play? Are you going to coach? Are you going to referee? Which one are you going to do? Because whichever direction you go in is great, but everyone's always tried to pull me in that direction. Oh, you should coach, do this, or oh, you should referee, do this. So I've always been a person that's been pulled in each of the directions in the game of basketball. The reason why I've directly gone into officiating is because I enjoy the game and I want to be involved with the game. But I noticed that as I was getting older, the direction of playing was never going to be my forte. I'm too small on the court. Even at the point guard position, I'm outsized. Coaching wise, would have needed a lot more dedication in relation to professionalism of not having a career either side, whereas refereeing, as it started within National League and Division 1 and things like that, I could still have my career alongside that as well. So it was something that fitted with life, basically, is why I went down the officiating route.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Being able to kind of it complement, your time in the game rather than detract from. Ingus, what about you? In terms of like coming to the end of your playing career and then looking for like other opportunities.
We'll be honest, I have quite same as Neil. I get injury in a training. I get ACL, which doctors told me that in summertime. And I spoke with doctors and thinking like when I can come back, my team was hoping I can start playing in like end of Jan or like that. But I spoke with doctors and they said if I want to still playing or really good walking or everything, I need to take at least a year out. So I didn't plan do nothing, which will be honest with you. I get message from Jeff Jones, I think, and he sent me a message saying, "Hi, we are running the referee like camp. You can try to see what's going on there. Maybe you can like see what they're doing." And in my mind, first was like, "Oh, maybe I'm going to see what they're looking for, how I can get extra fouls." That was my first idea. Let's see what they're looking for, how they're looking. Just using that in a course because I'm still planning to go back at least 2, 3, 4 years. I'm thinking, okay, then I can get more fouls, more free throws. That was my first idea. And then I went to Steve Ferris was running the course, and I did the course, and then I get just asked, "Oh, I saw you doing your level 2. Do you wanna like ref some games?" And I never did in my life, and I was like, I can't really walk. I can't super run, but I can walk. It's a junior, so it'll be all right for you. Just come and do a bit. And literally jumping in, did all right game, and just literally get told, you can be really all right. You know what to call that. That's perfect. It's just like you need to practice some small things. And that's how I slowly start. Like I said, that wasn't my really plan what I will do. I was thinking I will do now and then see how I feel. Then I was back on a court, and then when I have a free time, I still reffing, and that's how now, like same as Matt, staying in basketball, see my friends, get some new friends, and because I enjoy the game, I'm happy to do that.
But one question I'm really interested in is, what was your relationship like with officials, all three of you, when you were playing?
So I had. I'll talk about Ingus. Ingus was always very good with us. Me and Matt are both refed him. You know, he asked a couple of questions over time. He's got a few technical fouls, but he was generally he was quite inquisitive, and he was quite receptive as you gave. He's not a player that I would say was difficult to officiate, but you would ask questions, Ingus, and you would accept. Well, me personally, I don't know about Matt, but he was quite receptive, and he was quite, respectful towards officials, because sometimes you come across people that aren't receptive and aren't respectful. But Ingus was always quite, he was always quite good. He was still good now.
I think I learned that, when I was like 18, 20, I hate all referees. And then I have like big referees when they ref. And I was a bit flopping and all this and that. And they just gave me a hard time. Literally every time when I touch someone, I just get a foul. Or if I open my mouth, I just get teased all the time. So I think that time I just start like learning, understand that, better be nice, ask the question, try to get an answer. Probably never likes that answer, but you just like, okay, I take that and just try, I think that's how I started be like learning a bit.
Ingus, though, you were still flopping in your 20s.
I know. That's like I always said to my kids, that's my plan, get some extra fouls, get something. I know.
So Ingus saw that his relationship when he was younger wasn't so good, and he kind of like, I guess, you were a bit quieter or a bit more respectful as you got older. Was that fair to say?
I understand it's no really point, because when like you get one game 5 fouls, second game, and we have it like in Latvia, they come in, the referees come in and say, hi my friend, today will be 5 fouls again, and you just okay. Before the game you already get that one, and that's the top referees, which I now watching like all his Latvia shows in the EuroLeague. He was one of the first guys who gave me straight away, with not even asking, straight away put me on. And that's why I start understand that like sometimes maybe you need to start looking, and then even watching some tapes and watching how you play, and when you start like asking for the fouls when there's really no foul, but you are like put your hands up and like, yo, it's a call. You just start understand it's no point. It's better focus on that game and try to play, because every time when you start talking with the referees, you literally put yourself out from a game. And that's why I think I start learning, and then when you get older, you just start used to that, and then you're thinking about different things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the reason I asked the question is I wondered if you as a player had a good relationship with officials, then you have a natural affinity to officiating. But obviously, it's kind of proved that to be not necessarily true. Matt, do you have a thought on that?
Well, because I got involved with officiating very early into my playing, I picked up things from what was being talked about with relation to rules and etiquette and how to communicate more with officials and things, because obviously there's things in there that saying at appropriate times communication can be allowed with coaches and players and things like that, but it shouldn't be all the time. But I kind of, as I got into coaching, and because I had the refereeing side of things, as I was coaching, I was instinctively calling out, that's a foul. And it kind of got onto negative aspects in a way from when I was on the sideline, because I was calling for travels, double dribbles, because I knew what they were, which potentially sometimes the education of some people within the game, it's not necessarily there, and they're questioning based on a hunch rather than they actually know what the call should be. And then as I got more through coaching and playing, I started to understand, okay, I can't be shouting from the sideline for a foul every time, but I went back to that, well, hold on, there's free throws, there's a referee right in front of me. Oh, ref, can you just clarify if that call was such and such, or, and communicating that way. So because I had that intellect from the beginning, from when I was playing, and then it's gone all the way through, my rapport and relationship with referees has always been more of a positive one. Even when I was coaching or playing, it was kind of, I knew what opportunities I had to try and ask a question, and the answer is the answer, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
I also came across some referees who, remember the very good referees, and some of the referees around in the early days were absolutely top notch. So I remember the names that stuck out were Alan Richardson, Will Jones, Roger Harrison, Keith Bruce, Richard Stokes. They were the 5 that I remember who really dealt with you in the right way. Someone like Will Jones, you could talk and communicate with Will Jones, but then when it got to that point, Will Jones would, he'd give you the look as if to say, that was it. But some of those referees, that they got to the highest level because they had that ability to do that. Now, over time, I've tried to, put that into my side of officiating, and it really does help being able to be a good communicator. I won't name any referees that weren't good communicators. There was a couple of them in the early days that I remember that, what we used to do regularly were start of the game, we used to have our team talk, we'd go out, warm up, and then we'd come in. And then of a game night, we would always officiating the game. I don't know whether it's done now with clubs. It was back in the days of 2 referees. So it would be like Mike Burton would say, right, we've got 2 officials tonight, 2 of the best. We can communicate with, they're fair. But then other nights they'll be like, okay, there'll be a referee here tonight that's a rookie. So you've got to allow him a bit of, a few mistakes along to say. But there'll be other referees that say, if you give them a look in the wrong way, you're getting a technical foul. So I learn off the good referees, the Alan Richardsons, the Will Jones, the Roger Harrisons. I tried to take pieces of their officiating and apply it to my officiating.
Well, you were with Roger, weren't you, on his 3000th senior?
Last week, yeah.
But Neil, if you want to touch on particularly that moment for Roger, how was that?
Yeah, well, I actually was appointed to a game in Manchester, and when I realised, yes, with Ingus, was I with you? Supposed to be with you on Saturday?
Yes, I think.
I was originally with Ingus on Saturday. That's right, and then when I realised it was actually Roger's daughter contacted me and said, it'd be great if you could be there for his 3000th game. And I said, I'm already appointed to a game. So because I was appointed to the game with Ingus, I definitely wanted to get off the game. No, I'm only kidding, Ingus. As soon as I realised, I asked Sean Williams to take a switch. So I got a switch to be on the game with Roger because Roger was a referee that did a lot for me. He was the appointments officer when I started refereeing, and he helped with my development. So I really wanted to be a part of that game, and it was a real honour to be in that game with Roger. And I was with Roger and Kev, and he's, Kev feels the same way. He's a little bit behind me on, the point he came into officiating, but it was a really good game. I don't know if you saw the result. It went to overtime.
I did.
Hemel hadn't lost a game all year. Loughborough were sort of mid-table, and it was a real competitive game. It was a really enjoyable game. So I was really pleased to be a part of that with Roger because Roger was there from my, starting out from officiating. It was a real pleasure to be involved with that.
What makes a good referee? And you guys have obviously mentioned communication a bunch of times, but surely there's more than that. What is it about officiating that what is it about a person's kind of characteristics that makes them a good official?
Oh. They've got to have a lot of things. They've got to have a good understanding of the game. They've got to be able to be a good communicator. They've got to be, you guys got to help me out on this. There's so many things that can make a good referee.
Matt, what do you think?
I think knowledge of the game and feel for the game is a common phrase that we talk about as officials, that the higher up you go as an official, it comes down to that feel for the game of the call. It's all well and good knowing the rule by what it says black and white, but how well you apply that rule in relation to, is that call needed for this game or that situation? I feel that feel for the game is there. Obviously, you can't just ignore violations or you can't just ignore foul contacts, but it all comes down to the impact. And so I'd say that knowledge of the game and then tying that in with feel for the game is important for a good official. Things that we've already hinted on, obviously communication is key, and being able to apply or being open to discussion, but also knowing where the line is for, where that discussion needs to stop, similar to what Neil said before about Will Jones and other referees, that we've all come across as fantastic communicators, but we know where that line is, that, okay, enough's enough now. So yeah, communication, knowledge of the game, feel for the game are my three things that I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
I can give you...
Totally.
Sorry, Ingus.
No,
I can give you an example to touch on what Matt just said. I'm sorry to cut across your Ingus.
All right,
So imagine the three, me, Matt and Ingus are on a game, and I, for example, make a really bad decision. And everybody knows it's a bad decision. Ingus knows, Matt knows, the players know, the coaches know. Now, the coach who that decision's gone against could, for example, completely lose his mind and go berserk at me. By the letter of the law, he would have to be dealt with a technical foul. But Matt, knowing the game, would understand that Neil's made a mistake. I know that he's got it wrong, and I understand the coach's frustration there. Therefore, he can manage the coach in a way where he doesn't have to give him a technical foul. Because of his knowledge of the game, he can manage that situation. Whereas somebody who can't communicate and doesn't have a knowledge would just go to the rule book and go whack, technical foul, and it could just petrol on the fire or on that situation. Having understanding of the game can defuse situations like that.
The element of conflict resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I guess I interrupted you.
I just want to say that I absolutely agree. You both. That's what it is.
Okay, so go on.
Sorry, we make mistakes all the time as referees. We're not perfect. We're always going to make mistakes. There's going to be no game that's going to be refereed that's absolutely 100% perfect. Or if there is, I don't know of one. But trying to get good, and we've all had the games where we've been really poor, but having an understanding and being able to communicate really does help in those situations.
Well, obviously you three were put together for a match, for a game. What was that like? Who was it? Who was that against, and how did it go?
They need help. Me, I'm the young guy.
Was that game? It was Minesco, wasn't it?
We've had two. We've had two.
So what? So we did Minesco versus Manchester.
That was a Shield game, yeah.
That was the cup game, no?
Yeah.
That was the cup game, and then we get Bradford. No? Bradford.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bradford.
Yeah. And like I'm the new guy, they helped me out. So
Okay.
I was saved. Any call was saved.
Who was crew chief? Who was crew chief?
I think I was crew chief on the first one. Maybe both. Maybe.
I think both you were. Yeah. Both you were.
So the first game was really fortunate because it was a midweek game and it just worked for me. And I know Sean was struggling to a point in the game, and I think Sean took some pictures of that game. Did he not? I mentioned to Simon about having a picture of us. Simon said that Sean had one.
I do have that photo. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the picture of me standing with a foot on the ladder because the net was being fixed. Sean did take a picture of that.
I couldn't see a ladder in the picture, Neil.
No,
I think you're all right now.
Sean's good at getting pictures at an unfortunate time for me personally. But we had a good chat. We had a good pre-game, and what we did with Ingus was we always offer to try and pick up on something that maybe he can work on during the game. Little tiny things about mechanics and signals, just to try and pick a thing in each quarter that he could work on, and then try and further develop at Ingus because he knows the game. He knows the foul calls. He knows the double dribbles, the travels, the easy violations. Just trying to smarten him up and make him look much tighter as a referee. But the Bradford game that we then had, a couple of weeks back, that was a really, really straightforward game in that I've never seen a team shoot the ball so well as in Hemel. I think the 3-point shooter was incredible. It was literally up the floor, down. But it was a good game to get up and down and get a run into ourselves because it was quick, wasn't it? It was a quick game.
Yeah, very quick game.
How did you find those games, Ingus, with Matt and Neil, and from a learning point of view, did you learn heaps?
Yeah, very. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. So I always say, if you see something, let me know, and I will try to pick it up. That because I know I'm the new guy, And even, there's always some small things which you can learn. And I always like to learn. So I always said, if you have something, pick me and I will try to pick it up. So yeah, when I get told something, I try to do that better. Sometimes it's working, sometimes not, but still, I try and do my best. And it's very good because then you can see and watch how the experienced referees dealing with the coaches, with the players, with the situations, then you're just learning from that, and you can use that when you will be sometimes crew chief, or when you like doing some lower division, then you know how to deal with that situation, and it's just like very good for me. I really enjoy that.
Ingus Bankevic there. Thank you for listening to the Basketball England podcast. Remember, for all your Basketball England related needs, head to basketballengland.co.uk.